Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's after lunch, I hope. My discussion is not going to degenerate into a lullaby. I'll try and make it as exciting as possible. My topic is the stakeholder approach to curriculum development and its role in producing globally employable graduates in the financial sector in Botswana. My paper is divided into 6 parts. In the first part, where I have the introduction, then I will focus on some literature review. Then I go on to look at the methodology. Then fourthly, I'll look at my research results. And in the 5th part, I'm also going to give my conclusion. The referencing is the last bit. Our population in Botswana is 1.8 million. Out of this population, the age group comprising of the 15 to 24 constitutes 51.7% of the population. What is the significance of this grouping? The significance is that this is the age group that requires training, upskilling. These are the people who need to learn so that they become the future employees. Now, what is the unemployment rate? Unemployment rate is 17.8%. This is the total unemployment rate for the entire country. Now, out of this 17.8%, 35% is comprised of the young people. Where do I get all these statistics from? From the Core Welfare Indicators Poverty Survey of 2009-2010. I don't want to dwell on employability. I think we have thrashed that one. Anyway, it implies the mobility of workers as they seek to enhance their worth in the marketplace. Botswana embraced Vision 2016. Within this vision, one of the principles, one of the objectives, one of the tenets of that principle says they would like to convert Botswana into an educated and informed nation. Again, within that Vision 2016, there's also another principle that says they would like Botswana to become a prosperous, productive, and innovative nation. These two principles have been embraced, and in order to achieve this, the educational sector required revamping. The educational sector needed to be realigned to the new thinking. Consequently now, what do we find? We have many universities that have come on board. We also have many other tertiary institutions to try and make that Vision 2016 a reality, particularly on those two objectives. However, unemployment continues to exist. It's still haunting the authorities. The MEGI reported that there were 3,000 graduates. And several speakers that we have had at this conference have been stating that unemployment is there. It's a reality. And the nature of the unemployment that we are looking at is structural unemployment. And we all know what structural unemployment is. Structural unemployment is a mismatch. It's that type of unemployment that is caused by a mismatch between the graduate capabilities, and what the employer is looking for. Now, in this paper, I was looking at the financial sector. I thought the financial sector is very important. Why? Because the financial sector constitutes 7.2% of our GDP. That is a very significant portion of our GDP. Some key concepts that we have looked at. Stakeholder approach, I think that one has been defined well by my fellow colleagues. I wouldn't want to dwell much on that. Curriculum development, those are all the ways in which a training or a teaching is planned and guided. That is from Rogers and Taylor. Global employable graduates, I think that has been discussed already. But let's focus on the financial sector. We know that the financial sector is composed of all financial intermediaries. Now, who is the financial intermediary in Botswana? Our financial sector is regulated from the top by the Ministry of Finance. And it has two arms to manage and provide oversight to the financial sector. On the one hand, we have the Bank of Botswana, exercising oversight over our commercial banks, and we have 11 of them. Quite a significant number. Then we also have our statutory banks. We have 3. Our bureau de changes, 68. I think at every corner, we are bound to see a bureau de change. Now, we also have our microfinance institutions. You will notice that points 1 and 2 relate to the financial, educational institutions. Then 3, 4, and 5 relate to the financial institutions themselves. Now, in 3, we are saying, let's establish if the financial sector is consulted. Then 2, identify if there's a skills gap between courses offered and financial sector expectations. Then finally, determine the applicability of the stakeholder approach to curriculum development. This is what I had in mind. Now, let's look at some related literature. The first one that we'll look at is a very common function. Michael Todaro, he says national income is a function of capital labor, the resources that we have available, and the social cultural environment in which we find. Here I'm focusing on the L part. Why the L part? Because the L part is the labor. If we want to increase productivity, assuming that all other factors are constant, then we need to train and upskill the labor. However, since we are now focusing on the financial sector, we also need to recognize that capital is a product of the financial sector. Other contributions that have been put across, Esiasa says we have inappropriate education curricula. Anawi and Todaro also say that universities are coming up with ivory tower planning. There's no consultation with the other stakeholders to determine relevance. Furusa also says no true human factor development comes out of apemanship. Why copy what is done elsewhere just merely because we want to copy? We need to find the rationale. Better still, let's do our own stakeholder consultation and come up with our own developments. Other people have also said development in Africa should take place in the context of Africa's own organizations and institutions. In Zimbabwe, we had the Nziramasanga Commission. It said curricula should suit employment requirements. In South Africa, we had a very good discussion that we were given yesterday, but perhaps I need to add something that I did not hear clearly, and that is the National Development Plan Vision 2030. This proposes for a new knowledge production. We will see a lot of PhD graduates being produced. Trevor Manuel was the Minister of Finance, says graduates are ill-prepared for the workplace. In Zambia, Dr. John Piri was advocating for clustering as a concept. We have several stakeholders. I wouldn't want to dwell on the definition of stakeholder because I think we have covered that. But we have types of stakeholders. We have a variety of stakeholders, and many people have been talking about them. But the one that I would like to focus on is the employer. Is the employer being consulted? Because he is a critical stakeholder in the whole learning process. Remember, he is the person who is finally going to accept the graduate. Now, there are benefits of curriculum development. The first benefit is that it affords opportunity for discussion and reflection. It also enables the forging of links and networking. The key curriculum development activities are: we need to look at the situation, develop a framework, and a detailed curricula can then be developed. Then we implement and evaluate. The methodology that I used is, I looked at the establishment of educational institutions. This was a pilot study. I need to add that. I identified the appropriate respondents. Then we submitted questionnaires and we had interview sessions. The questions that I posed were, one, who designs curricula in your institution? Then two, how do you design that curricula? Then to the financial institutions, I said, are you consulted when curricula is developed? How often are you consulted? What is the extent of the consultation? Do graduates have the skills that you seek for the workplace? Now, our findings were educational institutions have stakeholder consultation structures in place. Methods of consultation do exist, 90% of that. Financial sector is consulted by the educational institutions. The extent of consultation, however, is thin and shallow. Almost everybody agreed on that. Further training is required on graduates. Now, what do I recommend? One, educational sector should view financial sector as partners and not as clients. Then two, a wide array of specialisms need to be developed by the educational institutions. Then three, special partnership agreements must be created. And let's also add special arrangements where we show partnership existing between our educational institutions and the financial sector existing. Then recruitment of lecturers should be done from the financial sector. Finally, internship of lecturers needs to be encouraged. More result-oriented funding strategy needs to be implemented. Structural unemployment can be eliminated. My assumption is if the employer is a critical stakeholder, therefore, as we develop our curricula, right from the content or items that we find featuring in the curricula, we should have input from the employer. Thank you.